Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44. So I attempted to make a video, kind of talking about just the follow-up stuff on the Joe Budden podcast topic, and unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to complete it. So I'm gonna try to make it again. Um, so yeah, let's try to hop back into the mindset, right? Essentially, the last time we talked about the Joe Budden podcast, we were just, uh, you know, we had just witnessed the return of Rory and Maul, and everything that was going on with that just simply felt kind of tense. And I talked about how it felt like the guys weren't on the same page about business and things of that nature. And just want to kind of chime in on the second return episode that they just had before the vacation that they're about to have, which is I think a week or something like that. They're going to be away. So yeah, essentially what I want to share with you guys is my point of view in regards to Maul and Joe. That's who I'm kind of zeroing in on, because that dynamic, look, it's a bit different than Joe and Rory. Joe and Maul, they once were roommates. They've known each other for a lot longer, and it was described on the pod that their relationship didn't. It's not business based. It's not industry based. This is one of his actual comrades outside, and the things that keep that friendship going are not predicated on the success and failure of Joe Budden's brand. And it's a dangerous thing, not dangerous per se, but it can be a very fragile thing when you involve someone like that in your business. But I think Joe, what he was looking for was a certain level of authenticity and a certain level of street edge that could complement him, while also having a guy like Rory on the side who can give him a little bit of smooth flavor, someone of the Kanye West era, you know what I mean? Someone who's raised in that era can kind of give him a perspective that's maybe a bit more youthful than him, and someone who's been in the industry, who did have ties to the industry outside of Joe, who can kind of put some perspectives on some of the things that he talks about from the business perspective and the industry perspective. So it's like a balance. Like, you got your street side and your Jay-Z ties, of course, because Maul is brothers with Biggs, who's Jay-Z's one of these main business partners, long time business partners and friend. So Maul is from that ilk. Maul also has connections to the NBA. He has a lot of friends in those areas, so that gives you a little more sports edge. So it's a lot of things that these guys bring to the table specifically, that even when you replace them with like guys like Ice and Ish, you don't have those dynamics. Rory brings like the emotional orange and some of the music industry, and stuff like that. He has connections to those guys, so you would get debuted music. Maul has connections to a guy like what's the dude out of New York? I'm a big fan of his music. What's his name, man? He does I can't think of his name. I hate when that happens, but he has musical ties as well. So they bring things to the table that ultimately provide content and provide perspective. And so Joe sees value in having those guys. But I think the problem that Joe has run into is not necessarily being forthcoming about their positions as it pertains to what they are owed for their contributions versus what they are not owed, in terms of equity and paperwork. So it's a situation where you're trying to teach the world about value, because one of their main focal points is trying to teach us, creatives and people who are out here trying to make a way for ourselves, creatively, how to define our value, how to find our value, and how to receive it. But they find themselves in a situation where they're not on the same page about such things. It's just like, if you know that is the case, then you kind of can almost predict something like this eventually coming to pass. And we've listened to Maul talk about business. It's really not his thing. He lets Rory and Parks and Joe kind of get into that. So, it's one of those situations where, again, Maul's on board. Like, if Joe doesn't want to pay Maul a certain amount, I don't think Maul is more so interested in any of that. He just wants to make sure that he feels right in the environment he's in, protecting his peace, receiving respect, things that he deemed are important to him in his friendships. So I think the best way for Joe to have handled that would be to have told Maul something along the lines of, you are, even though you're my friend, your role in this situation is employee, so that means you may not have privy to certain conversations. Your position doesn't allow you to have equity in the podcast. Like, these are hard, tough conversations to explain to somebody who you want authenticity and an urgency from. From my perspective, I think he already fights with receiving urgency in regards to the pod, even though guys are consistent and they show up. Maul doesn't tend to be as talkative, doesn't tend to engage in some of the jokes and all of that stuff. Anyway, so I guess it's like, to get the most out of my man's here, I have to kind of lead him in a way that makes him think that he's getting more out of the situation, or is due more out of the situation than maybe he is. And I think that that's a deviousness, a necessary deviousness, but nevertheless it's devious, because at the end of the day, you are foregoing the respect of your friend to a degree when he is not clear on what his role is. And yet, when you guys go through turmoil, it's all public, and now he's being seen as someone who doesn't understand all of this in real time. You left your guy out to dry. It's what I would tell a guy like Joe Budden, even though that probably wasn't your intention, because I would imagine on the back end you were hoping to make all your guys millionaires, which is why you didn't take certain deals, and this is why you explained to us why certain things went a certain way. But at the end of the day, Joe Budden has kind of built his brand on bucking back at the system. And part of what his appeal is fighting Complex, is fighting Def Jam. He's known for being in conflicts with various rappers, even bigger rappers than him, like Jay-Z and Drake and Game. Like, he's had his niche is kind of built around conflict and fighting against impossible odds, and trying to come out victorious. That's a part of his brand. So it's like, in engaging in all of that, one would think that he would kind of prepare his friends and his co-hosts for what is involved in their situation. He just forego the opportunity to do that. And look, at last video, when I talked about this, I explained why I think business is cutthroat and why it doesn't go well with friends. And if you bring your friends in, it may not be beneficial to be as forthcoming with all this information based on leveraging, based on who else is watching, who your competitors are in the business and field that you're in, whales who are looking to buy you out or finesse you out of your business. It's a lot of different things that go into owning a business and keeping it going. And if you don't do things properly, it can all just be a waste of time and ultimately put you in debt. Unfortunately, when you run a business, you don't just go to zero and then just walk away. Sometimes some of the things that you've invested require you to pay on the back end. You have to keep paying. Sometimes, you get involved in certain situations when you're trying to run a business to where letting the business fall isn't an option. If you wake up one day and say, I don't love this business no more, you got to go through the proper steps of making sure you sell that business so that you don't take on all those losses and end up having to fork over money that maybe you just don't simply have. Maybe the business is not able to make for you. So letting the business go by the wayside, or in this case, letting the business step aside while your friends come to a clear understanding of what their roles are and become okay with that, just doesn't seem reasonable to a business mind. But when your business is built upon friendship, you have to be able to tote that line in a way that doesn't allow it to fall apart. And I just look at the situation and say that's the lesson that we've learned here. Joe did a fantastic job at educating the world about how to seek proper value, but did a very poor job in teaching his friends how to seek proper value. So that's the situation. And it's like, a guy like Maul, these are grown men. They have to also take it upon themselves to get off that kick about, I don't care about business. Because you're involved in a business. And you are taking offense to things that if you had proper context, you would not be offended by. And if you had proper context, you would also realize that you could extend more consideration to Joe in all of this, if you were to understand the context and the constructual priorities of certain things as it pertains to business. And that's why it's important to know. To not know is harmful, and in this situation could be detrimental to the friendship. I hear a lot of people on in the comment sections, various comment sections, who are just as ignorant as Maul as it pertains to the structure of business. They are saying that Maul is right for asking Joe to put everything on hold, or even more so, not that, but okay for saying that my feelings prioritize the structure and the cooperation of making this business work. On its surface, in the street, that's sound. Your friend betrayed you morally, so therefore he's a clown. But in business, that's not where the thinking stops. In business, you are not considering the different angles that Joe has to consider in keeping not only his business going, but keeping his friendships going, and how that line is absolutely and utterly impossible. So, now that I'm starting to understand business a bit better, and context a bit better in terms of business, and economics a bit better, understanding is essential to have the proper scope to be able to know what's right and wrong and how best to handle your situations, especially around friends. Not knowing is harmful, and that's what Maul needs to realize. That's what I don't think Rory's necessarily in that book. I think Rory does understand all of this, but Maul, it's like, bro, context in this regard will change your perspective on how you should handle your friendship today. Because now you're not going to be looking at your boy saying, yo, he's a clown for not telling me what I need to know. You would say he was wise because this is the chess move he needs to make in order to keep his business going. But when you don't have the communication between friends to say, yo, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to guard against in doing what I'm doing. This is why your feelings appear to be being neglected, or your respect appears to be neglected, or why I have to phrase things in such a way so that clarity is placed for all of us to see clearly, not just you and I, but for the people who are watching us, other employees, and everyone needs to see and clearly that this is how we run our business in order for it to succeed and not end up being a detriment to everyone. No jobs for you guys and big debt for me. And so that's what needs to be explained to all his boys so that they know what's up. But if Joe were to explain that as that stuff started to manifest, because remember, as I said at the beginning, things probably changed. As money started to get involved, things probably changed. The view and the dream of what the podcast can be and how deals are supposed to be structured and who should have a say-so in what. As the value of the pod increases, those things start to become more critical. And when Joe told Maul what he said to Maul privately in that backyard, which was described to us as the pod is not your business, it was disrespectful in nature, but it was important in regards to helping Maul understand where he needs to stand in order to play his role properly. But Joe has to phrase it better. You don't tell your friend the podcast is not your business. The best way to describe the situation is, in the business that we are in, the say-so must come from me about how things go. It must be singular. I know that we appear to work together in the way that it's structured, in the essence of what it is that we're doing is friendship-based. But in order for the business to thrive, there must be a structure, a pecking order, a line of order for which things must go. The business starts and ends here with the name of the person who owns the business, which is myself. After that, anything that you guys have in regards to say so is either gifted by me to you because I own the podcast and have placed the equity of the podcast, my money into the podcast. It keeps it running. So it must end and start with me. And the why that is because if things go left, it falls back on me. It falls on my bank account. It falls on my credit. It falls on my reputation. This is my podcast. You guys are my employees and my friends who help me make it work. But really, it's my vision, it's my money, it's my lifeblood. So the best way to be considerate of me is to play your role. That's what you got to tell him. Just play your role. And at the end of the day, if he's going to play his role, friendship works. You find yourself in a situation where nobody's upset at each other. You find yourself in a situation where guys can say, I trust you. I don't have to look in your books because I know you're being forthcoming with information that helps me understand my role. And from there, everybody can fall back into their spot. No problem, no concerns. So that's what I'm hopeful will happen. Guys just start to communicate with one another about what it is that needs to happen to make it work. And if you don't want to be a part of it, Joe, don't get greedy about your friends not wanting to do the podcast or not having the energy because they are now aware that they're not going to make the money they're supposed to make, or they now don't have the say-so and they know it. Don't be afraid of your friends losing interest in what it is that they're doing just because they have to now fall in line with the roles that they have always been in anyway. They're following you. You don't need to withhold truths from your friends or perspectives from your friends, because ultimately this is what happens. So if they're going to be employees and it's going to be friendship based, they got to know what's going on. And if they're going to walk into a room where they can't know what's going on, they should at least know that before they walk into the room. And that's where I think Joe kind of went left. And talk to your friends better, bro. Look, you see how I just sat up here and conveyed all of this? I didn't have to insult anybody. I didn't have to belittle anybody's sensibility or make a man feel like he's stupid or tell him he ain't nobody to me or your feelings don't matter or play semantics. And that's another thing that kind of hurt the situation, the semantics. I'm like, Joe, you can't pick apart the word "owe" when your friends are saying you owe us respect and you zero in on the word "owe." You're forgetting the friends and the respect. You're zeroing in on how that respect's supposed to come. And he breaks off into a soliloquy in that first episode when they got back about how he doesn't appreciate the word "owe." But you didn't realize you conveyed to the whole world that you are a sociopath as it pertains to the people that care about you the most. That's what you conveyed when playing semantics, man, as he says, with the word "owe." The obligation of showing appreciation. You are telling us that you don't have the appreciation when you were really trying to convey that the appreciation is there. You just want to be able to voluntarily hand it over as opposed to it being an obligation from you to them. And that is bullshit. You owe your friends respect, bro. You are obligated because they are obligated. All of us are obligated. That's what friendship is. Now, if you want to pick apart the word "owe" or you say you don't want to owe nobody nothing, all that's going to do is tell us that you're a sociopath that is incapable of having friendships. And people think that about you anyway. Let's just keep it all the way buck. They think that because you can't seem to stay anywhere without making enemies. So as someone who pays attention to the podcast as much as I do, I look at the situation, I say, bro, you have got to get help for your conflict-based circumstances. Everything don't have to be a fight. Every single situation does not require your immediate strike back. Academic said something made a lot of sense. He was like, the reason why he was willing to play ball with the company that they worked for together, instead of going like Joe and Buck and rebuttaling and getting back at him quickly, the reason why that was able to work is because Ack understood that he can get him on the back end. Oh, okay, I'll play ball with y'all. Y'all want to have me come in on Fridays for something that isn't quite languaged properly in the contract, and you trying to cut corners and make money right now? Bet. I'll play ball right now, but guess what I'm going to do later? I'm going to tax you for all that. And that's the type of patience that I think people are looking for Joe Budden, and the type of leadership that people are looking for Joe Budden to take. It's like, yo, bro, yeah, you can fight your battle with every company that doesn't give you your value. But the urgency to do so is not assuming the understanding that you're going to continue to have these fights for years and years to years. How about you just be patient, play ball with some people, and then tax them on the back end? And that's the problem. It's like when you constantly looking to fight, you're constantly looking to fight for what's yours. You don't realize you can just get it another way. Just get another way. Play ball with them, let them make the money they're going to make off you, then make it off of them later. You know what I mean? And you'll have the favor of not having fought them or made them look crazy in the midst of them trying to do what it is that all businesses do, which is try to get over it to keep itself going. So when you understand business to the degree that I believe I do, in terms of perspective and structure stuff like that, and how things have to go in order for it to work, and how not to get emotionally involved in it. Then you understand that there's a reason for a guy like Joe to feel like, yo, Maul didn't do right by me, because here he is creating more problems for me while I'm already stressed out about this business. I'm already trying to make this work. It's already a pandemic, all kinds of crap going on, and now my friends can't just sit down and shut up and be cool. Like, that's how he seems to be looking at it from my perspective. So it's like, yo, just explain things to your friends, and they can be quiet and be cool. But if they don't know what's going on, they feel like they're being disrespected, they feel like they're being cheated, they feel like they're in the dark, they feel like they're not being given the respect that they feel they earn, and they haven't even been explained why they don't deserve that respect. There's going to be so much there that just is a misunderstanding rather than real beef. So with all that being said, guys just need to understand the context from which their roles are played and why it's important to play those roles to keep this going. And if you don't want to play those roles, then other guys will. And Joe needs to treat his friends better. Just treat your friends better. Stop being fucking devious, bro. Straight up. Stop being devious. Stop letting your homies think there's something that it's not. You know what I mean? You can get all this done without that. Tell them what's popping, and I promise you, you get the same energy because they are respect-based, especially Maul. He's respect-based. He ain't gonna sit up here and say, yo, I need this million, that million. No, he's just saying, yo, treat me right, bro. Talk to me. Talk to me like you got some sense. Tell me what it is, tell me what it ain't. And I agree with that. Even though I understand he doesn't understand the context of business, it still comes back full circle to this. If you're gonna treat people right, you're gonna get from them what you ultimately want out of them. And if you don't, well, shit, the situation could be volatile, man. Period. That's the lesson. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, man. My name is BDF44. I'm out.